So starting off with the sweet potato, obviously most poutine, regular potato, and has a lot less water than your sweet potato. So if you've ever baked sweet potato before, you've noticed that it's hard to get them really crispy. That's because it's like more than 70% water in a sweet potato. So there are a few tricks which you can do to make them a little bit crispier. They're never going to be like crunchy, fried, French fry,
unless
crispy.
you deep fry them,
yeah,
right?
But where we can get them pretty close and still get them really tasty. So one trick you can do is after you cut them, and cut them in, try to cut them in similar sizes so they cook at the same time. I like mine more rustic. I say rustic because I just cut them in
I can never get them the same
irregular
size.
shapes. Yes, exactly. There we go. Traditional. There's a lot of fancy words to mask it. And with this size, what you want to do is actually soak it in water ahead of time. This is optional. You don't have to do this. What it actually does is it draws some of the water out of the sweet potato.
It seems very counterintuitive to me.
It does, but and you have to dry it really well after. But it does take some of the water out. You'll end up with a crispier sweet potato fry. No, just cold water. Just cold water for about 20 minutes. The trick that I always tell people, especially when cutting round things, is always make sure there's a flat edge. It makes it a lot easier. So if I'm trying to cut fries like this,
it's going to be dangerous. Yeah.
So I've got a flat end. And then from here, take your time and just kind of work your way through it. And then these are like, you can use this. Like this as a fry is fine. Or I can just cut that in half.
Skin on.
Yes, so that's tip number 2. Skin on.
Helps with the crispiness, right?
Exactly. So the skin crisps up really nice and you get a really nice crunch.
And extra nutrition in the skin as well.
There you go.
You're going to get some more potassium.
Keep Christy happy.
I'll be watching.
Yeah. So spread them out. The third thing is don't crowd them. Like mushrooms, that's a tip I give with mushrooms. When you crowd them, they sort of steam each other and they get soft. So if you...
They're like us. When you're in tight quarters, you get a little steamy, you get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you want to keep them kind of all exposed to the heat. And we're going to put a little bit of olive oil. So just a pinch of salt, and you can put anything on here, smoked paprika. You can put, you can make it like Christmassy, put some cinnamon if you want. But I'm just putting salt. Very, very simple because we're making a really, really nice gravy. So this is going to go into the oven, hot oven, so 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Keep an eye on them. Everyone's oven's a little different. You don't want them to burn. But it'll take about 20-25 minutes. That's all. So that'll go in. I tend not to turn them because they still do soften up a little bit. And it's really hard to turn them.
I made some the other night, yeah, and you try to flip them with some tongs or something, and they just kind of separate on you.
Yeah, and I'll show you in a second what I did, but the one thing I think helps, rather than turning them, is if you have a rack, I'll show you in a second, one of those grated racks that you bake with. Cookie rack, there you go, there's a name for it. If you take them out when they're done and just lay them on the rack, they'll help to keep them crispier. What happens is when you let them sit on the baking tray on the parchment, they'll get soggy because of the steam and it can't go anywhere, there's nowhere to escape. But that helps more than kind of flipping it.
But then could you bake them on the rack in the oven? Like put the rack
Ooh.
Yeah, if it's big enough, and yeah, absolutely.
and that would crisp them from both sides at the same time?
Yeah, definitely.
I like that idea.
Yeah, you can try that.
Send us a photo of those
Yes.
fries.
So now this is the fastest, easiest gravy possible. This is gonna be perfect for a poutine, but this is good for even Christmas dinner, for chicken, Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving's past, but you get the picture. Really, really simple, very easy, and it's vegetarian as
The
well.
healthiest gravy you've ever seen, guaranteed.
So what we're doing is we're going to be using dried mushrooms. So super simple, very easy. Get a mason jar or a bowl. We're going to put about a quarter cup of dried mushrooms. My favorite are the porcini mushrooms. They're a little more expensive. You can get a package for like $4, $5. Or you can use shiitake mushrooms, which have a lot of flavor as well. And those are a little more reasonable. But just a quarter cup, that's going to go in. We'll add some herbs. So I have some bay leaf and some thyme. Whatever I have, like whatever you want, just kind of shove it in there. And then we're gonna add some big savory ingredients. And some of them you probably have in the fridge. If not, then definitely have them on hand because they're great pantry items. One is tomato paste. This is really big on flavor. And for about $1.25, you can have a nice tube of it, keep it in the fridge, and it lasts a really long time. So that's gonna go in. And about a tablespoon of soy sauce. Also, big flavor.
You're gonna say it. One of our favorite words of 2014, umami.
Umami, yes.
Does everybody know what umami is? So there's sweet, there's salty, bitter, sour.
And umami.
And the fifth is umami, which is kind of, I call it like a meaty, savory flavor that you get from mushrooms, soy sauce, but it's a Japanese word. Jeremy wrote a fascinating blog post about it. If you're ever on the ELLICSR blog, you can read all about what creates that umami taste.
Love umami. So that's it. Simple stock. We're covering it with boiling water. You know, just boil it, tea kettle, and give it a little stir. Let it sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can even let it sit a little longer. That's all it takes. And you have a beautiful kind of mushroom vegetable stock from scratch. Really easy. And this will work well, soups, stews, anything you need like a quick stock for. This is perfect. So now for our, I'll move fast because my shallots are burning. For our gravy, a little bit of olive oil. You can use, if you want a little bit of butter, you can mix the two. Put it in a pan, medium heat, and we added 1 shallot, or you can use a little bit of onion. So shallot, does everyone know what a shallot is? Shallot's like, it's kind of a mix between garlic and onion. You can find it, again, most grocery stores have it.
I find it more mild than onion.
It is a little milder than onion.
Like it doesn't have that bite as much.
It's got a little bit of a sweetness to it, which is nice. But just kind of caramelize on medium heat for 3 minutes. Really simple. And then we're gonna add our flour. So same amount of flour to the amount of fat that we added. So if we added about 1.5 tablespoons of oil, we're gonna have about 1.5 tablespoons of flour. And
so you could make this gluten-free if you wanted, right?
Yes.
You could use a gluten-free flour if you wanted to.
Yep, quinoa flour.
Whatever you have on hand.
Chickpea flour, that'll work as well. Otherwise, any flour will work. And heat still on, medium low. I don't want to burn this, but I want to start kind of whisking until the flour starts to pick up that oil and those onions. And can you guys see that? Oh, it's kind of like clumpy now. So what we're doing is we're creating a roux. Very good. We're gonna get chefy on you. You guys learn a roux. And this is sort of a beautiful kind of thickening agent that's used in most stews and like classic soups, like gumbo. Like this is more important than the ingredients for the soup itself. For a good gumbo is the roux. So we're gonna stir it around. Now, if I want a very kind of nutty, flavorful, intense gravy, I'll let that brown a little bit. The darker it gets, the more flavor you're gonna get out of it. Otherwise, just cook it for just a minimum of a minute. You wanna cook some of that floury texture, that flavor out. And then, again, still over medium heat, we're gonna slowly add our mushroom stock. Just a little bit at a time. Some of the mushrooms come in, that's okay. And you want to stir to break up those little sort of clumps that we made before. And now we'll add all of it. And the color alone, can you see the color? That was the boiling water with the mushrooms and the tomato paste. So you already know by the color that this is going to taste fantastic. And you can add this you can keep this, throw it into a stock after a soup. Most of the flavor's in here, but there'll still be some. The mushrooms, you can actually, they're reconstituted now, so you can actually chop them up, put them back in here. But that's it. So we're going to stir it. And then bring it to a boil, and then let it simmer for about 3 minutes. The thicker you want it, you let it cook a little longer. If it's too thick, just thin it out, add a little bit of water. So it's very, very simple. Until you have a really nice kind of consistency. This is one that I made a little earlier, but you can see like it's really, really nice and rich, super, super flavorful, and it's like a vegetarian gravy that was super, super easy to make. So that's the gravy. So
And
see
you're
how it's
getting-
boiling now? We want to kind of reduce it to a simmer and then just let it simmer for a few minutes. And then to finish it off, so this was the cookie rack that I was talking about. And these are the fries. So as it sort of dries on here, it still stays crispy. It doesn't get, like, it's still going to be a little soft because they're sweet potatoes, but it'll still have a little bit of a crisp on it. And if you can cook them ahead of time, right before serving, pop it into a hot oven, screaming hot oven, just for 5 minutes, just to finish them off, just to crisp them up.
And the good thing about poutine is you don't need them to be extra crispy because you're putting gravy, you're putting melted cheese on top. So, if they're a little on the softer side, it'll be just as delicious.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheese is another big topic of conversation with poutine, and there's only one cheese that you're supposed to use for poutine, which are proper curds. Yeah, cheese curds. There are no rules really, so you can use whatever you want. Last time I think we may have even used goat cheese or something like that, but so if you can't find curds, use whatever, and just
Put
a
some
little bit.
mozzarella, anything.
Yeah,
It'll taste amazing.
absolutely. So you guys can see this gravy, like we just made it, and look how thick it is already. Like that'll be perfect in another couple minutes. But this is when you finish it on top, and then the heat, serve the gravy warm because the heat from that gravy will sort of melt the cheese a little bit. And this is proper fast food. Really, really good.
Fast food done right.